everybody. Are you ready to start? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you guys,
Can you move over just a hair because I can't see you at all?
This way, how's that?
Yeah.
and you're welcome to
I
move
might
your
move over a
chairs
little bit,
however
yeah.
you want. This is Dr. Meade, and she's with Brazos Weight and Wellness Medicine. She focuses on
Yeah, I have a weight loss practice.
weight loss
but
and
also,
nutrition.
yes, nutrition, just, staying healthy, being proactive with prevention of disease.
And how long have you been doing this?
That aspect I started in 2020, so it's been 3 years or so.
She was an internal medicine
Yes,
doctor before this was
internal
found.
medicine. I worked at Scott White for, almost 20 years, okay? And I've always had this specialized interest in nutrition, preventative health care. And so I wanted to help patients with weight loss, and so I actually became board certified in obesity medicine as well. And so that's what I turned my attention to with this practice, Brazos Weight and Wellness, to help people again with weight loss. But we also talk a lot about disease prevention, health, losing weight in a healthy way, all of those different aspects of that. So I thank the Imperials for inviting me today. I'm excited to talk to you, and I hope that you enjoy the talk. What I'm going to talk to you about today is sort of an overview of different things, but I thought it might be helpful to, maybe interesting to you to kind of hear what I think are the habits that you can have that can help improve your health, okay? So, the first one, eat more fruits and vegetables, okay? So, eat all types of different fruits and vegetables. Eat all different colors of fruits and vegetables. Really, nothing is off limits in terms of fruits and vegetables. So, fruits and vegetables have a lot of different nutritious things. Fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients, prebiotics. They've got all these different things, and it's really a package deal. It's not like you can isolate out one or two components of that. We've tried to do that, and there are supplements and things like that that you can take, but really it's much better to eat the whole thing. You get the whole package with everything. They all work together in the best way possible when you try to do that. So, can everyone hear me okay too? Sometimes my voice isn't carried quite as well. So if we focus on kind of fiber, okay? Fiber sometimes gets glossed over a little bit, I think. And people think, oh, it's just something you eat, we don't really need it, we don't digest it, it kind of goes through our gut and we just, helps us to stay regular, but that's it. But actually it's got a lot of really a great health benefit. Fiber's only found in things that are growing, okay? So fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds. It's not in meat, it's not in eggs, it's not in dairy at all. So you can only get your vegetables from things that grow, plant things, fruits and vegetables. Fiber is a prebiotic. I'm sure you've heard that term, right? So prebiotic, I'll just kind of review it in case there's any questions. But prebiotic is actually the food that feeds our gut microbes. A probiotic are the actual live organisms that you're taking. So those are the things in the gut microbes like bacteria, viruses, fungus. Those are the organisms in our gut microbe. And the probiotics, you take that in yogurt, in kefir, kimchi, those kinds of things have the live organisms. But when you eat foods that have fiber, that is the food that feeds the gut bacteria that you want to have, the healthy bacteria. And we know that people who eat a lot of foods that have fiber, they actually have lower rates of chronic disease compared to people who do not eat enough fiber. So when you eat your fruits and vegetables, you get all of these great benefits. You get blood pressure control, you get cholesterol control, you get blood sugar control. It's just a long, long list of all these different things that you can get when you eat your fruits and vegetables. So the more variety, the better. I think we tend to maybe get focused on a few things. We eat a lot of green vegetables, right? We eat our lettuce and our broccoli and our green beans and beans. But one way to think about how to eat the variety is think about what colors are missing in your diet. So let's say reds and oranges. If you feel like you're wanting to add more variety, look and see, am I missing reds and oranges? Maybe carrots, maybe tomatoes, squashes, purples. Think about maybe purple eggplant. Think about purple grapes. Think purple cabbage instead of the white cabbage? Because the antioxidant is in the colors of the vegetables and the fruit. When you eat a wide variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, you're getting a wide variety of antioxidants, and they all do totally different things. So just try to find ways to add more fruits and vegetables to what you eat, okay? I think that's the first start. When I talk to patients about weight loss, that's one of the first things we try to do, because fruits and vegetables are filling. They are high in water, high in volume, but they're low in calorie density, which is what you want when you're trying to lose weight. So when you eat foods like those, you're going to be filled, you're going to be full, and you're going to tend to eat less of the other things. So just some ideas for you here. You know, it's not like you're going to have to go and eat different things, but think about like if you're doing spaghetti sauce, add in zucchini, add mushroom, add tomatoes, add things that you enjoy into the sauce. And so now you're eating spaghetti, you're getting all these other great things with it. If you're doing maybe scrambled eggs, maybe think about an omelet, or maybe think about egg scramble, where again, you're introducing other types of vegetables into the egg scramble as well too. So again, you know, get a little creative and think about how the things that you're eating on a regular basis, how you can find ways to add more vegetables and fruits to what you're eating. And this is meant to be really informal, so if y'all have any questions at all, feel free to just kind of speak up, okay? Okay, so the next thing, the next habit I think is important is to move every day. Now notice I didn't say exercise every day, okay? But just move, any kind of movement at all. So of course exercise is great. Exercise is structured, whether you're on a treadmill or you're swimming or whatever. But there's also what we call non-structured movement, so non-exercise activities. Things like carrying groceries from the car, vacuuming your house, you know, doing yard work. All of those things are helpful in terms of movement that's beneficial. It's not just going to the gym or going for a walk for 30 minutes and then just sitting the rest of the time. It's that combination of the structured exercise plus these other movements that can be really helpful. How much exercise a day? The recommendation for general health is about 150 minutes a week, which works out to be about 30 minutes, 5 days a week or so. And then 2 days a week, you want to do some type of strength training. Again, this is sort of the very basic type of, amount of recommendation for working out. Does that seem reasonable to most people? Yeah? It's hard though, right? I mean, 30 minutes, 5 days a week. I mean, that's hard to do sometimes, right? But if you don't have 30 minutes, 5 minutes is great. 5 minutes is better than no exercise at all. Exercise is one of those things where any little bit at all that you do can help you. You know, it doesn't have to be a set amount at all. And I want to show you a couple of studies that look at that. Oh, I'm sorry. This is really blurry for some reason. It's clear on my thing. So have you heard of the term exercise snacks at all? So I like that term. It's just little, you know, short bursts of exercise. 10 minutes a couple times a day or something. These are exercise snacks, okay? So this is a pilot study, meaning it's just an initial study to look and see if this needs to be, you know, continued, we looked into further. What they did was they looked at what we call these exercise snacks in older patients to see if there's any improvement. So what they did was they took older people, 70 to 75 years old, healthy, and they just did a home exercise unsupervised for a month. So not very long, just a month. Half of them, they did their usual thing. Half of them, they said they did these exercise snacks twice a day for a minute. For a minute, they rest a minute, and they do the next exercise for a minute. And a total of 5 minutes twice a day. And these are the exercises, so nothing really fancy. Sit to stand, so you sit, you stand up, seated knee extensions, standing knee bend, march in place, standing calf raises. So nothing high intensity, nothing really strenuous, okay? But what they found after just 4 weeks of that was improvements in the sit to stand in the group that did the exercise snacks. And there was also evidence of increased muscle mass and strength, okay, in the group that did the exercise snacks compared to the groups that just kind of did their usual activity, okay? So that little bit amount of exercise, you already could start to see some benefits. This one was a study looking at movement, okay, and how does that affect blood sugar levels? I'm sorry, the picture didn't come up with the little, the article, the actual article. But anyway, the summary is basically looking at people and walking just a short period of time, 2 minutes to 5 minutes after they ate. This got a lot of press attention. I don't know if y'all heard about this or not when it came out, but it got a lot of press attention. But basically, you can improve and lower your blood sugar levels by taking a short little walk for 2 minutes to 5 minutes, and that's all it took. So it wasn't anything strenuous. Frankly, you don't want to do something really strenuous because you just eaten, okay? But something small like this, in terms of movement, can be so beneficial in terms of helping lower blood sugar levels. So again, nothing strenuous at all, but just little bits of movement like that is really helpful. Okay, so I don't know, all of my pictures like this have come that blurred. This is another study looking at cardiorespiratory fitness, okay? So fitness is actually, we use it as a generic term, but it actually can be very specific in a lab where you can actually go in a lab and they can measure your fitness level, and they can give you a number based on that. And this is a study looking at your fitness level and your risk of cardiovascular death. And what they did was, I apologize. I don't know why I came like this. So basically, I'll show you real quick here. You have on this axis here, it says survival rate, okay? So this is survival rate. And then these numbers here are the BMI. So the dark line is a normal BMI, which is 18 to 25, okay? The second line is a BMI of 25 to 30, which is the pre-obesity overweight category. And then this is a BMI of 30 or more, which is in the obesity category. So what this shows you is that if you have a normal BMI, the dark line, then your cardiovascular survival rate is better than someone who has a BMI in the obesity range. Okay, that all makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. So the next slide, again, this is your survival rate on this slide here, on this this axis here. This is looking at your fitness level, okay? So this light line here is someone who has a high fitness level, and again, we can measure this in a lab. The middle line is someone who has a moderate fitness level, and then the dark line is someone who has a low fitness level. So again, as you can see, if you have a low fitness level, your survival rate is lower than someone who has a higher fitness level, okay? So now we're gonna put the two groups together. So now we have 4 groups, okay? So again, survival rate is on this axis here. And what we have now is we have the two higher lines are the people who are fit. One group is normal weight, one has excess weight. And then these 2 lines are the group who have low fitness. One has excess weight and one has normal weight. So what do you see here? What you see here is that when you have a good fitness level, even if you have excess weight, even if you have obesity, your survival rate is better than someone who is normal weight but is not active physically. So that's an independent factor. Okay, so this is a supposedly better picture, okay, of that same data. So what it shows is that as you're, I think I know what it is. I think I enlarged this on the thing, so that's why it's coming out blurry like that. Because I didn't know what it was. Okay, so basically this shows that data where if your fitness level, you have a high fitness level, it goes along in this direction, then your cardiovascular death rate goes down when you have a better fitness level, regardless of your weight, regardless of your diet, sort of an independent factor, okay? So I have patients that see me for weight loss, and I help them with that, but we also talk about how important it is to be fit, regardless of your weight, because that can overcome a lot of the, complications and things that go along with excess weight. Does that make sense?
Fit, could you just give maybe just a quick summary of what you mean when you say fit? Is Is it a heart rate, is it a?
So it's a measurement, okay? So basically, to get these numbers, they do it in what units call MET, which is metabolic equivalent of task, okay? So they have you on a treadmill, they have you on an exercise bike, they have oxygen, they measure your carbon dioxide output, your oxygen intake, and there's a formula, which I don't remember, that you can measure your fitness level. And so it's a very specific number. And actually, at Texas A&M, they have a lab, it's under the Huffines Center. It used to be called Fit Life, but they changed the name. But they actually do this. And I actually help there sometimes. The fire department, the police department, they go there, they get exercise stress tests, they get lab work, they get all this screening done. And they can actually measure your fitness level if you're ever interested.
Is that something other citizens can go do for
Yes.
free or something?
Yeah, if you're interested, I can give you the contact for that. They've got a
Yeah,
lot of
I'd love to do that.
nice resources there. They also do a body composition scan that looks at, that's kind of the gold standard. There's these different scales, but they do a DEXA scan, which is pretty much a gold standard in terms of determining fat, percent body fat, muscle mass, things
Okay.
like that.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I have two options, the treadmill or bicycle, which one is better? Or is the same?
They're both good.
Oh,
Take your pick, whichever one you would use. Okay, whichever one you would enjoy doing.
It's the same.
I think it does help to switch it up though. I think that it does help because you're gonna work different muscles when you do one activity versus another activity. And the point really is to kind of keep your body guessing a little bit. Because your body gets very efficient when it's doing something. If you do something over and over and over again, then it gets very efficient at doing that and it tends to burn less calories. So when you do different activities, you're gonna use different muscles and it's gonna get different results from that. But they're both great. Whatever you have access to that you enjoy doing, that you will do, okay, is what you should do. Okay, so, and then strict training. We don't want to forget strict training either. They're both equally important. And you don't have to do these heavy weights, okay? You can do small hand weights, you can do resistance bands. I'm sure you've seen those. There's the yoga balls, yoga, Pilates, okay, where you use your own body as resistance weight. That can also be great resistance training as well too, okay? Okay, the next thing is managing your stress. So stress is everywhere around us. Everyone's busy, there's always something that demands our time and our attention, and that can be kind of stressful. Really, we look at stress as sort of kind of two different things, right? There's acute stress, which is the short-term stress, okay? Things like, you're late for a plane, okay? You're trying to catch a plane and you're late, you're running, okay? Or, there's something going on that is short-term and you need your body to rev up so that you can do those things, okay? And then, it's over and then your body calms down, everything is back to normal. Chronic stress is a different story. Chronic stress is long-term. Chronic stress is things that are with us all the time that doesn't have a quick resolution. And so what happens when you have chronic stress is you're gonna really lead to high cortisol, which is a stress hormone, along with other stress hormone levels. And when you have these high stress hormones a long time, it stays high in your body for a long time, it puts you at risk for insulin resistance and also weight gain, especially around the middle area, what we call the visceral fat area. Have you heard of insulin resistance, what that term means? It's sort of a spectrum of insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes, okay? So when we have chronic high stress hormone levels, it can predispose you to insulin resistance and visceral abdominal weight gain as well. So look for ways to de-stress, right? Look for things that you can do that can help you. I just put some things up here, but find what's gonna work for you. Reading, listening to music, being outside in nature. There's a lot of great studies looking at being outside, being outdoors. Some of the studies shows that being outside in nature can be just as effective as some of these anti-anxiety medications that we use to treat patients with as well too, okay? So find something that's gonna work for you, maybe trial and error a little bit, okay? But find ways to help you de-stress a little bit. Get adequate and restful sleep. Okay, this is also important too. So our body works around a circadian rhythm, okay? So the circadian rhythm is sort of this 24-hour natural cycle that our body goes through. And it's dependent on the sun, light and dark. So you have these clocks in your brain. There's a central clock in your brain, in the hypothalamus, and there's also these other peripheral clocks in other organs in our body. And it's all meant to operate optimally based on the light and the dark cycles. We're not meant to eat at 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? We're not meant to be sleeping at 10 o'clock in the morning, okay? We can do it, but over time, there are stressors that happen with that. We know that people who do shift work, okay? People who work nights and sleep during the day, they're at higher risk for a lot of medical complications, cancers, diabetes, high blood pressure, all of those things, just because of working against what your body naturally is doing. We know that your body processes food differently when you're eating it at night at different times compared to when you're eating at the times that you're meant to be eating, okay? So it's important to think about the timing of the things that you do and try to stick with the natural circadian rhythm of the body. So these are some ways that you can try to support your circadian rhythm a little bit better. Get outside early if you can. Sun exposure is great. First thing in the morning, kind of helps reset everything. Keep your sleep schedule consistent. A lot of times people, are great during the weekday because they have to get up early, they go to work, they have other obligations, but then on the weekend, they stay up late, they go to bed late, they wake up late. And so when you're switching that quickly between doing something you're doing 5 days and then now all of a sudden you're you're staying up till midnight or 1 or 2, then over time that's just not a good habit. It's hard to sleep, your sleep is not going to be restful as well. So try as much as you can to keep your sleep and your other schedules consistent. Don't eat too close to bedtime. Again, we talked about how your body just processes things a little differently when you eat too late. In general, you really want to not eat 2 to 3 hours before bedtime if possible. Caffeine, some people are very sensitive to caffeine, and even if you're not sensitive, it may affect your sleep. So if you are sensitive, you want to make sure you don't drink too late, anything with caffeine after lunch or so, maybe too late for some people. And then artificial light, we have all these screens with us, okay? So that's another thing too. So if you're able to kind of limit that before you go to bed, that can also help as well too. So I put on here adequate and restful. There's 2 qualifiers for the sleep, right? It has to be adequate, okay? So what is adequate? How much is adequate sleep?
Enough.
What's that?
Enough hours.
Enough hours, yeah. So what is that? Do we know what the numbers are?
7 to 9 or
7 to 8 is kind of what the studies are showing. Between 7 to 8 hours is adequate. Now again, everyone's gonna be a little different, right? Because some people may need 8+ hours versus 6+ hours. But in general, 7 to 8 is kind of the best time. Studies show that if you sleep much more than that, or you sleep much less than that, then there's health consequences related to that. And the other thing too is restful sleep, right? Just because you're in there and you're sleeping may not necessarily mean that it's restful. If you get up a lot at night, and then sleep apnea is a big one that is related to this. I don't know how much you know about sleep apnea, but it can be very disruptive. You're not getting that deep, restful sleep because your breathing is impaired. And so you're waking up a lot, even though you don't realize you're waking up. So you can wake up tired. You can be sleepy during the day. You might fall asleep unintentionally as well too. So there are some risks related to sleep apnea in terms of weight, in terms of snoring is something we look for as a screen for sleep apnea. So
if your sleep is disrupted, you might think about getting that screened as well to look and see if there's some sleep difficulties related to that. Okay. Okay, this is the last one. Okay, limit ultra-processed foods. Okay, so I put a little asterisk by ultra-processed because we have to have some processing of food for us to eat, right? We have to make sure it's safe, it's got to be edible, all those things. But I think we kind of know what is overly processed. You know, it's going to have a lot of additives. It's going to have usually fat is added, salt is added, sugar is added, and then there's flavor enhancers nowadays, and there's all these colorings and different things with that as well too. So really the big category in this is the ultra-processed meats, okay, which is, has been shown to be, has been linked to lots of different health conditions. And then just sort of, you know, we know these are not good for us, right? But some processing, like I said, can be good for us because we need some of that. So just to kind of show you some examples, like if you have a potato, you cook your potatoes unprocessed, pretty much whole, right? If you turn it into a potato chip or a French fry, then that becomes more processed, okay? You have a tomato, it's unprocessed. If you turn it into marinara sauce, it becomes more processed. But marinara sauce is not necessarily bad for you, right? If you do it the right way, but you know, just because it's processed like that does not necessarily mean that it's unhealthy for us. Chicken turned into chicken nuggets becomes processed. Corn turned into popcorn, and popcorn is actually, can be good for us. It's actually considered a whole grain. It's just that when you add the butter and the salt and all these other things to the popcorn, that's when it becomes a little bit less healthy. But if you pop your own popcorn, you add your own flavorings, your own seasonings to it, it can actually be a really healthy snack for you. Apple turned into apple pie. So my point with this is that you have to kind of think a little bit and just don't make a generalized statement in terms of processed and ultra-processed food. There's a whole classification that we use for processing. It's very complicated. They haven't figured out exactly, you know, because some foods that are processed can still be good for us, but yogurts and fermented foods and grains and things like that can be just as healthy. And canned and frozen foods too, okay? A lot of times people think that's not as good as fresh fruits and vegetables, but actually they can be just as healthy. And there's a study that just came out recently looking at frozen foods, and just because it's processed very quickly when they pick it, actually it retains a lot of its nutrients compared to fresh food. So don't be concerned about the frozen and the canned foods also. So these are the risks of the truly ultra-processed foods, okay? Weight gain, heart disease, cancers, dementia, diabetes, insulin resistance, all of these have been associated with ultra-processed foods, eating foods that are high in ultra-processed food. Okay, so sorry again. This is a really neat study. This is a study looking at what eating ultra-processed food does compared to eating whole foods. And this is what they call an ad libitum study, which means they had let these people eat as much as they wanted. And they were able to find people that lived in the hospital for a month, okay?
Wow.
They lived there for a month, they controlled everything, their food, their activities, everything else. So they got a really good controlled study with this, which is very hard to do. Now, it's not a large number, but it was, enough for them to do this. So what they saw with this, what they did really was, let me show you this. So they had two groups of people. So they divided them. The first group started with ultra-processed for 2 weeks, and then they went to processed. The second group started backwards, so they started with unprocessed, and then they went to an ultra-processed diet. So their control was their own self. They didn't, that was what they did. Each group had 2 weeks of unprocessed and 2 weeks of ultra-processed. And they did a lot of different measurements of different kinds of things to look at that. Okay, so this, the blue is the ultra-processed, the red is the unprocessed or more whole foods. And this shows the calorie difference in terms of how much they ate when they were eating ultra-processed versus unprocessed. on average, when they were on the ultra-processed diet, they ate 500 calories a day more compared to when they were eating the
Wow.
unprocessed, okay? Most of the calories were in the carbs and the fat. The protein is the red, and that's pretty similar. And most of the calorie intake, the excess of that was more early on, breakfast and lunch. Dinner and snacks were pretty similar. The other thing I thought that was interesting about this was that the rate of eating was faster when they ate ultra-processed. They were able to measure how fast they ate this. And the blue, again, ultra-processed, they ate faster when they ate ultra-processed compared to unprocessed. Kind of makes sense, right? It takes a long time to eat a salad, you know? It doesn't take that much to eat some French fries or, you know, chicken nuggets or something. They also gave little surveys to test and see if the patients liked the food they were eating, if they felt full of the foods they were eating, and very similar. This is, you know, how pleasant the food was, how familiar it was, did they feel full with it, were they hungry, did they enjoy it, and as you can see, very similar. So it wasn't like they picked that they ate ultra-processed, they felt, you know, fuller or they, you know, more satisfied. It's very, very similar in terms of the two groups. Oh, this is clear. So this one shows the change in the body weight. So again, when they were eating ultra-processed, they gained a pound a week.
Wow.
Compared to when they were eating unprocessed, they lost a pound a week. And the weight gain was fat. This shows the fat mass, and the weight loss was weight loss in fat as well too. So there's something about, they're postularizing, there's something about the ultra-processed foods that somehow makes people eat faster, eat more. Maybe there's something that makes them crave it a little bit more as well too, okay? So there's some follow-up studies going on with this. The person who does this, his name is Kevin Hall, and he works for the NIH, and he does a lot of these different really fascinating studies where he's able to like bring people in and really monitor them very, very closely, because they're hard to do these kinds of studies. So, so yes, ultra-processed foods. Okay, so that was my last slide for this. So in summary, basically, you know, these are the things that I think, you know, making changes can really help in terms of improving your health. And these are not really in isolation. You know, if you eat better, you're gonna, you know, feel better. If you exercise, if you move regularly, it's gonna help your sleep. It's gonna help your mood. If you're get sunlight, it's gonna help with your sleep. So they're all very interrelated, okay? And so, you know, doing one of these things can maybe affect some of these other things as well too. And this is a proverb that I found that I like. The secret to living well and longer is eat half, walk double, laugh triple. I recognize this one. And that's it. Do y'all have anything to add to that in terms of that you think might be, that you would throw in there that are good for?
I think the ultra-processed foods, it's a lot of the types of oils that are in those foods, the plant oils that are highly processed. They can raise your insulin, and they're not good for brain health.
Yeah, there's a lot of extra calories added into extra, you know, with the oils. They tend to be, ultra-processed foods tend to have trans fats also.
Right.
Do you know what trans fats are? These are artificial fats. Usually they're listed on the ingredients, partially hydrogenated something or other, okay? And the FDA has banned trans fats in our food. It's been a few years, but it still sneaks in because the FDA allows, like, I think 0.5 milligrams per serving. If you get 0.4 milligrams, you can list it as 0, okay? So it's not 0, it's 0.4. If you eat 2 servings, you know, that's possibly 0.8 milligrams.
And they make the serving size small on the
The
pack.
serving size small, so you have to look at the, you know, the serving size, is that appropriate? What's the calorie count related to that, okay? So the trans fats tends to be in the ultra-processed foods. You know, it tends to be in, you know, the pre-baked pastries and, you know, desserts and, you know, things like that. So if you stay away from that, then it does help you with limiting the trans fatty
need to watch, if we eat a lot of fruits, we need to watch the sugar.
So I get that question a lot, okay? There is sugar in fruit, okay? But unless you're like a very hard to control diabetic, okay, it's really not a big issue. It's really not, because you have other things with the fruit. You have fiber, you have all these other great things that modify the effects of the sugar, okay? So, I think it's fine to eat. Now, you know, you don't want to go crazy, eat a whole watermelon or something, okay? But in general, I mean, it's really, really good for you.
When you're looking at vegetables and fruit, organic versus,
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to do organic, that's great. But frankly, if you want to, you should maybe save it for like things that have very sensitive, thin skin, you know, like with the berries, things you can peel, probably not a big deal. I think if you're able to, there's a lot about the dirty dozen and things like that. But I don't know, I've read some conflicting things. I don't know that it's that much of a difference, organic versus not. Now again, if you're able to, then that's great, and especially the really fruits and vegetables that you have to eat the skin, it might be good to do that. But if you're able to like peel oranges and bananas, I mean, I don't think they need to be organic.
where does milk fall in this picture?
Milk is a little more complicated in the dairy section, okay? So, in my mind, I kind of group milk separately from things like yogurt, cheese that have some fermentation. Because I think the fermentation has been shown to have some benefits, okay, in terms of our gut health. In my opinion, dairy with cow's milk, those kinds of things, I think there's too many hormones and things in there. So I'm not a huge fan of regular dairy. I like the plant-based ones. I like soy, I like oat milk, I like almond milk. I kind of prefer those. But yogurt, cheese, you know, kefir, things like that that are fermented, I think there's a place for that. You just have to watch the sugar though, because they can be high in sugar with the yogurt. So you have to kind of read and just make sure there's not a whole lot of added sugar. Plain yogurt, Greek yogurt, things like that, when you flavor it yourself, it's gonna be much better. If you have,
What percent, like, you're eating a meal, what percent should be fruit and vegetables and meat and maybe carbs or?
so, I
Do you
mean,
have-
if you have the, kind of the plate, and usually, generally what we say, everyone's gonna be a little different in the different meals, but in general, half of it should probably be non-starchy vegetables, okay? A quarter of it should be a lean protein of some type. And then probably the other quarter should be a whole grain, some type of a complex carb whole grain. And then a little bit of fat for seasoning, for flavoring, and things like that. So, because that tends to be more of the calorie dense food. Especially if you're trying to lose weight, you want to be careful with that. But if you're not, then you know the right healthy fat can be really good for you.
So when you talk about the whole grain portion, what does that mean? What would you say that
So
means?
you know, I think sometimes grains get lumped under carbs, and carbs have this bad reputation, frankly. But whole grains have so many great benefits. So let's kind of list what whole grains are, okay? Actually, I have a presentation on whole grains if you want to look at it. Let me see. There we go. Okay, so I've kind of showed you some pictures of whole grains here. So you've got oatmeal in the corner here. That's barley down here. That's brown rice. I mentioned popcorn. That's a whole grain. Corn. This is farro, and this is quinoa. Okay. So I also have listed kind of name so that some people are not familiar with it, and so they may see it somewhere. But I like to put the names out there because if you happen to see it on, you know, a restaurant's menu, you might want to try it. I've seen farro salad a lot.
That's so good.
Yeah, farro is this, and it's really firm, so it holds up well to dressings, in salads and things like that. But then there's all this whole category of ancient grains as well too that are.
You know, I really love Ezekiel bread, and you can keep it in the freezer and just, you know, make
You'll
some
see a slide
avocado
of this.
toast or something.
Yeah, you'll see a slide of this coming up here. So this is what whole grain is, okay? So you have three components. You have the outside bran part, you have the middle part, which is the carb, the endosperm, and then the germ is the seed part. So when they process grain, okay, what they do is they take away the bran, they take away the germ, you only have the endosperm, which is all carbs. So when you eat that, your body breaks it down really quickly. And so your blood sugar can go up quickly because it's released into your body quickly.
Okay. Picture that picture.
Compared to when you are eating whole grain, you have the bran that has the fiber that binds to the glucose and things so that you're stabilizing your blood sugar, you're not releasing that into the bloodstream right away. The other thing is your body processes this completely different than the way it processes the whole grain. So again, you know, pasta and things like that with the processed grain is going to be different than whole grain, okay? So these are some of the benefits of eating whole grain, okay? It can help with a lot of things like diabetes, and a lot of those supplies when they do it can help with treating diabetes and also preventing diabetes. It's very anti-inflammatory, it can help with a lot of these conditions. And then a lot of evidence shows it lowers the risk of death from heart disease, from cancers, and what we call all-cause mortality as well too. This was a study that came out in November 2021, so pretty recently. November 2022. It looked at dementia in whole grain. It was part of the Framingham study. It looked at about 2,500 people, so a pretty large study, followed them for 12 years. And they found that those who ate the highest amount of whole grains had a 34% lower risk of total dementia and a 40% lower risk of Alzheimer's dementia. Okay?
Yeah, that's
And-
significant, huh?
Yeah. And it was all kinds of grains. It was oatmeal, it was dark bread, brown rice, quinoa, all of those different things. And breakfast cereal can be healthy too with the whole grain. Just be careful again with the sugar that's added to it. That's why all these different organizations recommend it. American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, American Diabetes Association calls it a superstar food. Okay. How much a day? So you want to try to get about 3 servings, which sounds like it's a lot, but if you look, the servings are small, right? It's half a cup of cooked oatmeal, half a cup of cooked pasta, half a cup of cooked brown rice. So not a lot, not hard to get 2 to 3 servings a day of whole grains. And then there's your Ezekiel bread, the sprouted grain bread. I like that a lot. It's made. It's the sprouted grain. It's got a lower glycemic index, so it doesn't raise your blood sugar as much. And with the Ezekiel bread, you know, you've got 6 different kinds of grains in there. So that's a nice option to have. Sometimes it's confusing, so I just recommend reading the ingredient label, not the packaging that says all these different things. But if the first ingredient says whole wheat flour, whole oat flour, then it's whole grain. They may say 12 grain bread or something, but if the first ingredient is enriched wheat flour, then that's not whole grain. And then there's a stamp that you can look at too. Whole grains can really help keep you full. They're very filling, so they can help you, you know, when you are working on weight loss as well too. This is switching gears a little bit. Do you know, y'all know about resistant starch? You know what that is? So resistant starch is starch that is resistant to digestion. So it's a form, there's several different forms of starches, but resistant starch is like fiber, basically. Your body doesn't get that starch. So you can convert other forms of starch into resistant starch. So the way you do that is you take your potato, you cook your potato, and then you put it in the fridge to cool off. A cold potato is going to have more fiber, more resistant starch, and less calories than a hot potato. Okay?
So can you reheat it?
You can reheat it
And
you
it's
can
still-
keep that resistant starch.
Really?
Yeah.
So You cool it down, but then you can reheat
You
it.
can reheat it. You know how the texture is a little bit different when you
yeah.
have a hot potato compared to a cold potato you've reheated? That's the resistant starch.
And the flavor.
Well, yeah. Or you can do a potato salad, okay? But same thing for pasta, same thing for rice. If you heat it, cool it off, that builds that resistant starch.
Oh.
So it's a way to kind of have your potato if you really are sensitive in terms of blood sugars and things like that, okay?
That's really cool.
And then I just always like to show different ways to eat different foods so that it gives you some ideas. So the whole wheat pasta, soups, I love to put grains in my soups. It's really filling as well. And then as far as oatmeal, you can, instead of do oatmeal, you can also do different grains and make it like oatmeal. So you can do millet. Actually, you know, that restaurant Snooze is a brunch place on University. They actually have a menu item, I think it's called porridge bowl, and it's got oatmeal, quinoa, and millet. And they cook it with coconut milk, and there's a ton of fruit on top. And it's really good. I think it's not, I would say healthy because it's got a lot of sugar, okay? But it does give you the idea that you can also change your oatmeal, so you can change your texture a little bit by using different kinds of grains with it. Okay? Oh, this is just a little last thing. So I tell patients to try to get, you know, sometimes if you run an experiment, you're not sure how to cook barley or how to cook quinoa, how to cook farro. There's these packages that are pre-cooked that you just microwave, and they're really easy for you to try. It's 90 seconds. I've seen barley, I've seen farro, this is quinoa with brown rice, and then you can try it and see if you like it, see what it's supposed to taste like, and if you like it, then you can go and, you know, try to make it yourself. But this is a way for you to kind of experiment a little bit. And I think that's it for the whole grains one.
Go back to the question about sugar and fruits, fructose. Yeah, I've in the past avoided fruits a little bit, even though I know they're really nutrient dense because of the sugar content, and I was trying to lower carbs and sugar versus carb. So, but then I had heard that if you eat an orange whole versus drinking
The juice.
half of a cup of orange juice or something like that, it's a totally, body handles it totally different.
Yeah. I read somewhere
Can you
like,
elaborate on that?
I think like, I read somewhere like if you drink like a glass of orange juice, that's like, I don't know, 8 oranges or something in there to make a glass, okay, or something, versus eating 1 orange. Think about all that fiber that's in that orange. Again, I think it's really, and I look at this from a lot of times from an aspect of weight loss in terms of calories and all that. But you know, we look at calorie density, we look at nutrient density, okay? So calorie density is how many calories per certain amount of food, per certain volume of food, per certain weight of food, right? And when we're trying to lose weight, we want to have a low calorie density food. We want to have a high nutrient density. So nutrients are vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fibers, all those things, right? So we want to select foods that are filling, that are satiating, with the lowest amount of calories. And that's what we're trying. So if you eat an orange, you know, or let's say you picture like you have a serving of a salad or something, right? When you eat that salad is really high in volume. You eat that, it's going to take up space in your stomach. It's going to stretch the stomach, stimulate the stretch receptors in your stomach, goes to your brain, tells your brain I'm full, stop eating. Okay. If you have something that is smaller in volume, and maybe higher in density, even same calorie density, but smaller in volume, that's not going to have the same effect in your stomach. Okay, you have to kind of wait for that to be broken down, goes to your brain, tells your brain I'm full. That's why there's a little bit of a lag in terms of your brain and your stomach in terms of, hey, I'm full. So what happens when you do that is you don't get that signal that you're full, so you might eat another portion of that before you feel full. And that's what they're theorizing with these ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods have all the fiber taken out of them, all the water's taken out of them. So it's a very calorie-dense food. And when you eat that, you just don't feel as full, and you tend to overeat when you do that.
And they're so salty, like you could eat more just because there's salt.
And after a while, you get used to that.
Yeah.
Salt and the sugar as well.
If you
too.
fast and after you fast, you can taste the salt even in whole foods. Like you really get sensitive to salt.
Yeah, if you don't eat, you know, if you really try to cut back on sugar and salt and things, you don't do that for, I think 3 weeks is what most people say. You know, when you eat it again, it's gonna be overly salty, overly sweet, because you haven't been used to that.
Were you saying there was a restaurant that?
Oh, Snooze, it's
Snooze.
a brunch kind of place, it's on University.
How do you spell
Snooze, like you're snoozing. or-
Snooze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on Taro and University.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Hilton, sort of.
Yeah.
I love that.
Again, it's good, but it does have a lot of sugar, just to warn you.
Well, I have eggs too.
Eggs are a little bit of a mixed bag, but in general, eggs have the only issue with eggs is really the yolk that has the cholesterol. Okay, the egg whites are great, it's got the proteins and all those other things, but it does have the cholesterol in the yolk. But the consensus is most people think that a few yolk eggs are not going to be a big problem. There are some. I mean, there's really two camps about that, okay? Some feel that it is more of an effect than others, but I think for right now, I think that is still fairly, a few eggs a week is not gonna be a problem. But again, I always try to, you know, tie that to some fiber, okay? So, you know, add it just with spinach, add it with onion and tomatoes and all these other things.
What are your thoughts on like the good fats, like supplementation of good fats? Like the omega-3, 6, 9?
We have to engage with it. We have to leave a few minutes early.
Sure, thank you so
Thanks
much.
for coming.
Yeah. So, okay, so really, there's two kinds of fat, saturated fat and unsaturated fat, right? Trans fat is kind of a different one, but saturated or unsaturated. So saturated fat has been strongly linked to raising your LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, and linked to heart disease and to diabetes, okay? So you really wanna try to cut back on saturated fat. Unsaturated fat tends to be the liquid at room temperature. So unsaturated fat are things in olives, avocados, nuts, seeds, okay? And they tend to be the omega-3. So omega-3 and omega-6 are what we call essential fatty acids. It's essential because your body doesn't make it. And it's part of the polyunsaturated fat, okay? We get a lot of omega-6. It tends to be in the oils and things like that. It's harder for us to get omega-3. Turns out it's really the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 that's helpful. The Western diet, the ratio is about 17:1 of omega-6 to omega-3. And to be healthy, it really needs to be about 4:1 or so. Okay, so we eat too much of the omega-6, not enough of omega-3. So fish, sardines, salmon, things like that are great sources of omega-3 as well too. Fish is a little tricky because of contamination with mercury and things.
Yeah.
So you do have to be careful with that. Small fish are better. They don't retain the mercury as much as the big fish. So that would be like sardine and herring and things like that. So that's a little bit tricky in terms of the fish, of the eating fish to get your omega-3. You can take a supplement, that's perfectly fine. I like the algae supplements, okay, because you buy these supplements, omega-3, and they're like fish oil and things like that. But they're kind of indirect because the fish eat the algae, that's where the omega-3 is, okay? And then they eat the algae and then we eat the fish oil from the fish. So you can go directly to the algae supplements and get omega-3 that way.
Dr. Brazos, are the blood panels that you run, do they look at the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3?
I don't know if there's
I
any
don't know
blood
that they
tests
can
that
do
we
that.
can do.
You can't do that,
Yeah.
so you don't know what you have.
No, you don't, I don't think we can measure those levels yet.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't do that.
But I guess it's just in what you're consuming, the amount that percentage or the ratio of what we're
Okay.
eating.
So it's
The omega-6.
measurable in your body.
Right.
So like chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp hearts, those are great omega-3 sources as well too.
So look for the things with omega-3.
Say that again?
See, look for things that are,
Mm-hmm.
have high levels of omega-3 in them, those in
Yeah.
your fridge. Okay.
What about the triple one, like the 3, 6, and 9?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Meade,
Yeah, that
again.
was,
Thanks for doing
hope
this
that you
for
enjoyed
us.
That was
it
so
for your
good.
time.
Yeah, it's always great to hear from you. You even have a different presentation than last time.
Well, I
too.
have like, because I go through, when I see my patients, I go through different things every time.